Hi friends, and welcome to the channel. Today we're talking forms, everything you need to know to work with and customize them. A form, of course, is basically the screen that you see in a model-driven app, whether it's in Dynamics 365 or some other model-driven app built on the Power Apps platform, like the one that you see here. This is the out-of-the-box form for an account, which is one of the standard entities that you get with Power Apps and the Dataverse. But what if you wanted to customize this form? Where do you start? Well, before we get to that, let's talk about some of the different kinds of forms available. As you're doing customization work in Power Apps, the first thing you'll notice is that there's several different types of forms, and they look and behave a little bit differently. I've got screenshots of these in the coming slides, but I wanted to include this just as a reference for you. The main form is the main UI for a particular table or entity, and if you're going to be customizing things, it's likely that this is the one that you want. There can actually be multiple main forms for one table or one entity, and there's a form selector highlighted in orange here that lets you toggle between them, and we'll see this in a demo in just a second. The Quick Create form is kind of an abbreviated version of a form that appears on the top right of the screen when you click the little plus sign here. The point of this form is to enter just basic information for a record and save it without having to go through the full form and all of those data fields. The Quick View form is a read-only form that's kind of embedded within another form. It's used to display information for a related record, such as in this case, we've got a contact for an account. This saves the user some time from having to click into the contact form separately. You can just see it right here from the account form. And the little padlock icon here denotes that it's read-only. In this example, you wouldn't be able to update the contact from this account screen or form. And then the last type is a card form. This is used in the mobile apps or even in the browser when you resize the browser to a smaller size, something like this where we've got all of the accounts. All right, so with that overview, let's go and see how these work in the Power Apps platform. So I'm here at make.powerapps.com and I'm working on a solution that I created for this work. If you want to learn more about how I got to this point, check out the video linked above. And then for the end user UI, we saw this earlier, but I built out a simple navigation over here on the left. We've got the built-in accounts and contacts, and then I created a custom table or entity for vehicles. Now this is a model-driven Dynamics 365 app, but the forms work the same way in any other kind of model-driven app. So if you're not familiar with Dynamics 365, don't worry about that. Don't let it throw you off. So here on account, this is an example of a main form, and I mentioned a second ago that form selector up here. You can see there's actually 5 different main forms for an account, and you could toggle between these, and you're going to get slightly different information. So you'll want to find the one that needs to be edited. In most cases, it's going to be the default like we have for account here. And then back in make.powerapps.com, you'll want to go to that table, so account, and then click on forms. An account is an example of one that has a lot of different forms. We'll look at a simpler table in just a minute, but there's a lot here. And over here in this column, form type, you'll want to find main. You'll see there's actually quite a few. Also, make sure that you check for the status. These two down here are inactive, more for some of the legacy apps. But that one we were looking at just a minute ago is a main type, and then the name of it was account. So you could click into here. And I'll zoom in just a little bit down here on the bottom. Let's say you wanted to update this to say phone number instead of just phone, whatever the change is. And then you want to make sure that you save your changes and publish, or you can just publish, which will also save them. While we're waiting for that, if you're finding this helpful so far, I'd really appreciate you hitting that like button so it can reach more people. Thanks so much. All right, once that's done publishing, you can come back to the end user UI, do a refresh. And there you see your change came through as phone number. All right, so that's the main form. Let's take a look at the Quick Create form, which can be found over here if you click the plus sign. And if we wanted to quickly create a new account, that's where this form launches. So an abbreviated version with fewer fields to fill in. Back here in our Maker Studio, if we back up, come back to tables, account, and forms. In this column here, you want to look for Quick Create. In this case, we actually have two. One is specifically for the field service app if you're using that in Dynamics 365, but we want the one just called Account Quick Create. So I'll open this up. And you would edit this the same way. So maybe you wanted to say main phone number or whatever the change is. We'll publish this. And then once that's done, we can come back here and do a refresh. And if we click the plus sign again, create a new account, you'll see that change reflected. All right, and you would do the same sort of thing for the other types of forms. So just to keep things brief for this video, I'll skip those. But if you want to work on the card or the quick view form, you would do that from here as well. Now, account is a built-in table, and there's obviously lots of forms here already, but what if you're creating a custom table or entity? Let me cancel out of that. Something like vehicle here. If you were to try to create a new vehicle, you'll see the main form here has only got 2 fields on it by default. So let's take a look at how we would edit this. It's actually the same way as the built-in tables. So I've got vehicle down here. I've just added a few custom columns. I've got one for year, make, and model. And if we look at the forms, as you might expect, we have form types, main, card, and quick view form. This particular one doesn't have a quick create form because I didn't specify that when I created the table. If you wanted that though, if you come up into settings and advanced options, scrolling down, there's one right here to leverage quick create form if available. So I could do that if I wanted to. But to edit the main form, it's the same as what we saw before. You'll see that these are all named information, which is sometimes a little bit confusing, but you'll want to check the form type here, which is main. So let's open this one up. That's the one that's showing by default when I go to create a new vehicle. Now this form was created automatically for me when I created the table, but it's only got the fields that are either required, like owner, or suggested, which is name. But we can add additional fields here. So we say form field, the add form field button up here, and I could drag over year, make, and model. These are columns that I added. We'll publish these changes. And now back in the end user UI, if I were to refresh this, you'll see that I have those additional fields or columns there now. So that's it. Those are the basics of working with the different kinds of forms in a model-driven app. If you want to learn more about Power Apps, check out the playlist and be sure you subscribe to get notified when I upload new things. Thanks so much for watching.